9 iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome in, golf fans. This is the Preferred Lines podcast and live stream. My name is Joe Idoni. You can find me on X at Tour Picks. We're here to recap the Mexico Open. We finally got a winner. We're going to break down PGA National, and then we're going to give some picks to win the Cognizant Classic of the Palm Beaches. It still doesn't feel right. This is my hometown event, though. I'm fired up to get over to PGA National this week. I'm fired up to bring my boy in, who I've played this course with on many occasions in tournament conditions, to break everything down this week. But before I do so, got to mention this show is proudly presented by the good people scrolling across your bottom over at Rotoballer. The promo code you can use there is LINES. That'll get you 10% off any sort of subscription that you want to go with there. Weekly, monthly, they've got all the offerings. It is what I believe the best deal in the industry. You get access to all of the analytics, the numbers, the quantitative guys, my boy Model Maniac, Spencer. And then you get things like myself, who doesn't really look at any stats or data. But hey, I'm on a hell of a run with matchups. 16 of my last 20 matchups in the head-to-head Rotoballer Discord are winners. That's an 80% win rate. Unmatched. Trust me. Friendly reminder to all those new listeners and old that I enjoy a good thumbs up, a like, maybe a retweet, but most of all, go to that YouTube page for Preferred Lines. Make sure to subscribe to that channel. If you drop a comment there, that's where I give away winners. That's where I give away, like, you earn a t-shirt, you get a hat, I like you, I'm going to send you some gear, get you all swagged out with some PL gear. Thank you very much. Appreciate you all joining us. And now, without further ado, to break down this event in our hometown, the man we know as R. Baroff. What is it, 427?
427, yep.
427. What's up, RB?
Happy to be here. Looking forward to another good Honda Classic.
Yeah, dude, I'm kind of sad that we're, since we stopped making giant donations, we didn't get the invite this year to come play in the event. But it was a ton of fun. Ryan and I, for those of you who don't know, it was like 3 or 4 consecutive years, got invited to play in the Monday after the Honda event. So they left the Sunday pins. They left the tournament conditions completely the same. We played as a 2-man team, and it was one of the cooler experiences on a golf course that I think I've ever had. You got the grandstands all up, green speeds at a different level. Like, that was my biggest takeaway of playing that place in tournament conditions, was the speed of the greens and how difficult not only putting was, but it was to chip it close from on and around sort of the green. What was your sort of biggest takeaway from having that experience?
Pretty similar. I'll just say the firmness of the greens. I'm a decent player when I'm playing well, but even trying to stop a bunker shot, right, anywhere near the hole, I just found that very difficult, especially when you get the windy conditions. So,
yeah, I'm happy that we kept this event more than anything. The new sponsor moves in, of course, sad to lose Honda, but it's one of the best attended events annually on the PGA Tour schedule in terms of ticket sales. It's sort of like a dialed back version of Waste Management. I mean, it gets a little rowdy there on the weekends, especially at some of those military tents and on and around the Bear Trap. Excited that we have a sponsor. We get a good field this year, much better than we've gotten like the last 5 years. There were some big surprises. I was happy to see like Matt Fitzpatrick and some other guys. Were you a bit surprised that we got some big names sort of late commit last week?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things that I kind of had a feeling that we were going to get a better field than usual because there was the week off between Riv, right? Last year, they came from Riv right here, and then API, Valspar players, etc. I think jamming Mexico in there, I think a lot of these guys wanted a tune-up before going to Bay Hill and the players.
Yeah, I've heard some noise and some tweets in the atmosphere that we sort of circle around about the strength of these events, similar to this one in general, has kind of gone up. We've seen a lot more of the more bigger names sort of commit to these type of events that they may not have previously. What that has done is sort of potentially, it seems, diminish some of the opportunities for maybe some of the Corn Ferry Tour players or the typical tour grinders to be able to have opportunities to get in this field. I know you're a guy, like, you were the one that got me on Jake Knapp.
Mhm.
You were beating this drum at the end of last year. This is going to be my guy next year that I'm going to bet. It's the whole reason I was on him last week. Do you see it sort of that way, that it's potentially diminishing some of the opportunities and playing spots available for these guys when you get Fitzpatrick and Cam Young and Tom Kim all sort of commit last minute to a big event like this?
Totally. I mean, a lot of those guys, like in Mexico, is probably their third start of the year.
Right. It's
Um,
unusual.
Yeah, and I'm not overly surprised now with the condensed schedule, because a lot of these guys, I mean, obviously, they haven't played in months. They want to get as much golf in right now, because after, like, when you get to the Masters, it's pretty much, major elevated, major elevated, major elevated for the rest of the year. There's just not room for any of these other events. So look, I'm glad we have a good field here, but yeah, it's definitely tough on those the Corn Ferry guys and the Euro guys who got their card. Like, they're getting some starts too, but like, if Valimaki didn't get these starts, right, where would he be?
He was the last guy in, right? When
If Matthew Pavon didn't
Zalatoris
get
was
his
out,
starts,
right?
yeah. If Matthew Pavon didn't get that start, who knows where he would be? So
Yeah, Grayson Murray and Nat both came up off the Corn Ferry Tour. They're Corn Ferry Tour, and they're two of our winners. Obviously, you mentioned Pavon.
Yep.
We're in a weird spot with, I think, there's really no runaway candidates for guys that have separated from the rest of the field. Like, I was looking at the top 5 in the OWGR today, and it makes sense, but it's Scotty, Rahm, Rory, Scotty, Rory, Rahm, Victor, Xander. It's weird because I don't think any of them are playing that well or reaching anywhere near their potential. It's hard to really argue with Rahm. Rory's had a slow start, at least on the PGA Tour to start the season. The frustrations continue to boil with Scotty Scheffler. I don't know where Victor Hovland is at with his game right now, and Xander is lingering, and I think probably in the best, most consistent form of the bunch, without Scotty sort of being in there, but just isn't winning. Like, do you agree with that top 5? Who would you rank as the top 5 in your RBGR rankings?
I mean, I was thinking about it because, like, how do you put Xander in there? But his finishes have still been good, even though he doesn't ever threaten to win. Look, Scotty has still elevated himself, right? The putter is a problem, but he's very clearly number 1 right now. I mean, I would probably throw Max Homa at 5 over Xander, just because he's won, right? He's kind of proven it there. If we get a motivated Dustin Johnson this year, and I could see him popping off a major too, but I just don't think he's motivated right now.
It's like these PGA Tour guys just aren't winning, and they aren't capitalizing on these opportunities. So I look at someone like Cantlay and Xander and even Hovland at the moment, like, what have you done for me lately type of deal. And I'm like, you know what? It could easily, you could swap those 3, Cantlay, Xander, Hovland, out for like Brooks, DJ, Bryson. And like, you end up with 4 of the top 5 that are currently playing on the Live Tour. And we're really not that far off. Like, the difference between Xander or Victor and like go down 15 spots to like Sam Burns is like 20th is not that big of a difference between those 2 players.
Not how they're playing right now.
Right.
And I think, it's partly motivation factor. I get this question a lot because people like to bet major futures, right? And I always get asked, like, who are you betting for me? I don't bet futures, right? I have one, and it was the Oberg number at 100-1 at the Masters, because at the time it was a bad number. He's young, he's motivated, he was still playing well. If I had to pick someone now, I'd probably pick Scotty Scheffler, because he'll figure it out. But I don't have confidence in anybody at the time. No.
And it's like one of those guys, they're so close to like closing that gap and overtaking one of those players. Like, honestly, Ludwig wins Bay Hill, and like, I'm putting him over Xander. I might be putting him over Victor. Like, Sam Burns win the Players, and like, he's all of a sudden like my number 3 player in the world at that moment.
I'll give you one more. When Zalatoris wins the Masters.
Yeah. right there.
Very reasonable outcome right now. And I think that would for sure put him in the top 5. So.
Yeah, speaking of the live guys, we got to talk about it today. Norman threw out the teaser in the desert sand. Anthony Kim is back. Could they have possibly picked a worse event and timing wise to roll out the biggest story? It maybe not the biggest, the second biggest story in like all of live, and you're going to have it on in the middle of the night. And nobody's setting an alarm to watch that on the CW.
No, and I will give them the benefit of the doubt here because it's a good get, right? It's awesome. A good signing for them. I'm sure they would have loved to have him at the Vegas event. I'm sure he had a lot of things in his insurance policy and contract that he wanted to iron out. I'm not going to go out of my way to get up and watch it, but if I'm around, I will certainly watch it. I'm certainly like everybody. I'm just interested to see if he tells the story. If he says, where he's been, what he's been doing. There's been some sightings here and there. He's playing golf here and there, but like nobody really knows what he's been doing for the past decade. He's not married, I don't think. Doesn't have any kids. Probably wasn't working. Like, who knows what this guy's been doing?
Yeah, I think he was in a lot of blackjack halls out there in Vegas and like some late nights, probably at the nightclubs. But we'll see. I'm excited to watch him too. The PGA Tour is shifting back to their storylines. They were quick to get very excited and reach for a little social clout with the old Charlie Wood stuff playing over at Wellington National this weekend that went poorly. I don't really want to talk about Charlie. I think people are talking about it too much, but I do want to talk about Tiger because it was my opinion, and this was never going to happen, but it was my opinion that he should have played this week. It's an event that doesn't require travel. He can stick to his trainers. He can stick to his gym. He can stick to his regimen. He can stick to his PT guy. And he basically got a round and a half in at Riv. And people act like, here's my biggest problem with them is people are like, well, he said he's only going to play once a month. It's not like this guy goes into like a hyperbaric ice chamber in the month and comes and breaks his shell once a month and is like, okay, I'm here to play and I'm good. He's working 7-8 hours a day on the golf course. He's doing, I would imagine, 6 days a week, a very similar schedule to what his playing days are like on the PGA Tour to get himself ready. I know he is no stranger to hard work. I just think that he needs reps. And when you go back to that 2019 Masters and you look at the lead in to what he was able to reach that pinnacle once again, and it was built on tournament reps. He played the Honda. He played Bay Hill. He played, I think, Valspar. Like he was playing a ton of golf early in the season to get himself ready and geared up for that moment. I don't know that that's necessarily the reality, but if he's not going to play this week, do you think we see him at the Players? Is Bay Hill a consideration, or is he basically shelved until Augusta National?
Yeah, I think you'll see him at the Players. Okay. I do think we're going to see one more. I assume he could get a sponsor's invite to Bay Hill if he asks for one, but he's already qualified for the Players. I think he's in both this year and next year. So he's got.
How does he qualify for the Players?
I believe from his Masters win. Okay. I think it was 5 years, and then they added one for COVID. So I think he's good through 2025. So yeah, I do expect to see him there. I was encouraged, I guess, a little bit from what we saw at Riv. Seemed to be walking well. Obviously, the short game was kind of rusty at the start, but I mean, no surprise there. He doesn't play on POA anymore. Doesn't practice on POA anymore. So
yeah. We saw, I guess, the biggest change this year, besides the name of the title sponsor of this event. They're changing par on the 10th hole, which irked me a little bit. And maybe more than it should have, but they've essentially moved that hole back 20 yards. And ultimately, I don't think that makes it much harder. We've both played that hole, unless they have experimented with some internal OB to the right side there. I would imagine that's probably implemented again this week, but they've made a lot of very subtle, quiet changes at PGA National over the last 5 years. They expanded all the greens in 2018. They made them bigger. They made them more accessible with hole locations. They redid some of the bunkers and added more sand. What they did to 17, I thought was weird, and nobody really paid attention. So 17 used to play like 200 yards. Then they had to build out this triple-decker stadium behind that hole, and there wasn't enough room, as you know, between that and the 11th hole behind it. So they moved that hole up. We played it at like 200 yards, and then we went back like 200, like 2 years later, and it was all of a sudden a 140-yard shot.
Yeah.
So they've made these efforts to, I think, make the scoring more palatable, I'll say, to professional players. And I guess that's who they're trying to appease here and get more to this event. But does something like changing the par to a par 5 and maybe making scores go from -9 to -12, something that helps them there? Because it's going to play right around like 4.2 strokes. Everyone's going to birdie that hole. It'll be last year it played 4.05 on the weekend. It's going to be one of the easiest par 5s on the PGA Tour schedule, in my opinion. And I think it was the wrong move. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really. I think the last few times we played there, it was back into the wind. Like I think I hit 3-wood in there last time we played, which for me, obviously that's a lot of club. I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of a weird hole because, like you said, it's a slight dogleg right, but you can't blow it right or you're dead in that bunker or kind of behind the trees. If you hit it down the left-hand side, you run through the fairway down into that rough, and you're just sort of punching out, maybe get into the bunker. I just think guys weren't hitting that green enough for them to keep justifying it as a par 4. So, yeah, maybe it's a little more exciting. It's obviously easier now that they can make eagles and stuff like that. But it just wasn't an interesting hole, and maybe now it'll be a little more interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's get in. Let's talk a little bit more about the course here. All right, I'm going to give my sort of cliff notes on PGA National, and then you have anything to add, Ryan, of course, chime in at any moment. But obviously, Jack Nicklaus design, it's at PGA National Resort. There are, I believe, now 5 courses there because they built one of these new courses where there is no par, which is kind of unique, and you can play all these different tee boxes, but it's the only Nicklaus design on property. Like I mentioned, there have been those sort of modest, maybe overlooked renovations that have, I think, made the course play easier in recent years. And you can kind of see it in the scoring. Although ultimately this place is always the scoring 100% of this place is dictated by the wind. So make sure to pay attention to that this week. But Chris Kirk at 14 under won last year, Sepp Straka at 10 the year before, Matt Jones at 12. That was the last 3 years. The 3 years before that, Sung J M at 6 under, Keith Mitchell at 9, Justin Thomas at -8. So you can see there the difference in scoring the last 3 years has been a little bit easier. One of the things I noticed at PGA National is if your miss is to the right, and you've played with me, Ryan, where you know my overcut there to the right, it's a big problem at PGA National. The following holes all are protected. The right side of the hole, almost the entire length from tee box to green, is protected by either water or a white OB stake. 2, 3, but then you get to the back 9. 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 all have water to the right. If you're a player who misses to that side, and I know there are some websites out there to run models and you can kind of sort and filter by this, I think it's a good idea. And I don't think it's a coincidence necessarily that if you look at the players in most recent years, like Chris Kirk or Eric Cole, Sepp Straka, Matt Jones, they're all players, I think, with a very heavy draw bias to their swing. So it may be something that's just anecdotal the last couple of years, but something that I've noticed. GCSAA fact sheet says 15 holes with water in play. I don't really think it's in play on 15 holes. You're going to have above average fairways in regulation this week, and I believe that's because the majority of there's really only anywhere between 6 and 9 holes where the pros need drivers. You can club down, try to hit fairways. You know, one of the things that I was looking at, and I think is a very sneaky one if you want to get different this week, and maybe people are hip to this. I haven't listened to any podcasts today, but I think distance actually is a major sneaky advantage here. If you go back a number of years, it's a course where Rory has won, where Tiger has competed. He was runner-up. Actually, when Anthony Kim, I looked today, was runner-up here in 2010. That was my first time at the Honda. But even the year that Henley won, Rory was runner-up. 2016, Adam Scott and Sergio Garcia. 2017, Fowler was really long that year, and Gary Woodland. 2018 was Justin Thomas and Luke List. 2019 was Keith Mitchell and Brooks Koepka. Hell, even your boy Brandon Hagee finished second here like 2 years ago. Maybe distance is a sneaky one to kind of look at. And of course, you're going to have that volatility. So from a DFS standpoint, I think maybe it may be more advantageous to look at guys who are more plotters and fairway finders, because you're going to have the spikes of guys who are really good and guys who completely implode, who are really long off the tee. But I think if you want a winner, distance is important, because if that guy who's 20 to 30 yards longer than the rest is clicking that week and can manage to avoid a major penalty, they have a great chance to win. Lastly, scrambling, chipping, sand saves, all really important. There is no bailout here. And I talked to Denny McCarthy a few months ago, and I remembered his point here. And he's like, if your ball striking is a hair off, this place is going to expose the shit out of you, because what you're going to do is you're going to protect yourself from the water. And as you know, on like 15, 16, 17, the bailout is to avoid the water and go in those bunkers on the other side of the green. And that is an extremely difficult up and down. There's like no sand there. The green then slopes into the water, and almost nobody on 15 or 17 with the speed of the greens and the slope gets that sand shot up and down. It's very rare. So the bailout is not there. You have to stand up and you have to hit a great golf shot and take on the pin, which is where a lot of people have disaster here. Anything for you to add on sort of my notes on the course?
Yeah, no, that was pretty good. I'll add another hole with out of bounds right would be number one. You don't even think about it, but you got the driving range over there.
Driving range, yeah.
And again, those guys are mostly hitting hybrid or iron off that tee, so it's not a huge issue. But I know you and I have come close over there.
Yeah, I've been over there.
I agree to an extent with the distance thing, and I think part of it is because of the wind, because of the firmness, these fairways are going to be harder to hit. You're not going to hit as many fairways. You're not going to hit as many greens. And so I'm going to factor in angles with your driving distance, right? If you are in the right spot, you can play from the rough, right?
Yeah.
I think a perfect example is what should be a birdie hole number 4, right? A very short par 4.
Yes.
If you miss that fairway short right, you may have a 60-yard shot, but you cannot hit the green, right?
You can't stop it.
Zero chance to hit the green from there if you're pitching over the bunker. So staying out of the water is important. Fairways would be great, but you're not going to hit a lot. And you're just not going to have that many birdie opportunities, right? If you're hitting 8 or 9 greens a day and having 4 or 5 makeable birdie putts like that, that's probably all you're going to get. Try and keep doubles off the card. Try and take advantage of the couple of par 5s you have, and stay dry.
You mentioned the firmness of the greens, and I think about that too, because there are a couple holes where I also think that distance is a major advantage, like the second hole. If you're too far back there, it is really hard to hold that green on the second hole, especially when it's on that sort of back level tier. Even if you're coming from that right rough on the second hole, you're able to elevate it enough where you can hit that. And that's sort of the proper angle to attack that as well. Same with the sixth hole. The sixth hole is a par 5 with a skinny little like narrow, like a kidney bean type green. Like if you're too far back, it is really hard to hold that. And they play it as a par 4 to even hold that green and clear that trap and get it to stop there, unless you're coming in with enough height where you're able to sort of
that hole sucks.
Hold that green.
Yeah. And like that hole sucks because usually you've got the wind that's coming kind of behind you, but going right. So unless you're willing to start it over the water, you're blasting it into those trees and rough on the right. Then you're coming in from what, 215, 220? Yes. Water bunker. It's an awful hole.
Yeah, water left like Gator Island to your left-hand side there too.
Yeah,
Get some good alligator shots this week. PGA National always brings it.
For sure.
Are you going any days?
Possibly Friday, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Let me bring up the odds board here. Let's see who we like. Let's make some picks. All right, Cognizant Classic. I got to keep repeating that to ingrain it in my brain. But Rory McIlroy is back here. Rory won this event, like I mentioned, in 2012. He finished runner-up 2 years later to Russell Henley. Then he essentially missed the next 3 cuts, and we haven't seen him since 2018. He was miscut, 56, totally out of it. He's like, fuck PGA National. I'll never come back there again. I imagine he's saying this. But I'm very surprised to see him back at this event, especially I heard I think him say that he's kind of like moved home base out of Florida. I don't know if that's totally transpired yet, but certainly nonetheless excited to watch Rory play golf. He's playing in the match now at the park down the road as well. Then second on the odds board, I did not see this one coming, Ryan, but it's Cameron Young at 22-1. Russell Henley 25, Benny On 28. We got some juicy like names in this high 28 range.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Fitzpatrick, Eric Cole is there at 30-1, JT Poston, Tommy Kim. Those are all the players 30-1 and under. Who have you bet?
So from this list, we got two. When we were texting on, I guess, Friday night or Saturday, we were talking about Eric Cole. I didn't think we would get a 30. We did get a 30. Actually got a 33 this morning. So I was very in on Eric Cole. And then I bet Benny On. There was a 45 out there. I think there may even been a 50 out there, but I got a 45. I believe it's already crashed to 25, 28 some places. He absolutely loves this course, playing even better now than he probably was back then. He's longer. He's putting better. Just could not be a better spot for those two.
Totally agree with you on Cole. Like I mentioned, was excited. I did not get the 33. I was happy to take the 30. I think where he excels here, obviously last year, you and Pat and some other people that I know had a huge ticket on him, like 150-1. It was close. He made it to that playoff with Chris Kirk. Thought Kirk was dead when he missed left. I thought like that maybe in that little creek there left. Yeah. He managed to like get it out from behind a tree. Made an incredible third shot, made birdie, made the win. But it was a great story. It was really where we saw Eric Cole burst onto the scene. Then he just basically didn't stop playing golf till he won Rookie of the Year. He's now had a week off. The man didn't go to Mexico. He's comes here from the Genesis where, sneaky top 10 finish at a course that does not suit his game, in my opinion, very much. But obviously his strength around the green and putting, particularly on this Bermuda grass, he's really pretty solid and underrated, I think, in bogey avoidance. I took the 30 on Cole, and I got a 35 this morning on Matt Fitzpatrick. Did not expect to see this number. I don't know in what world maybe I'm totally off base here, but we're putting Cameron Young as the second favorite in this event. I think it's clearly Matt Fitzpatrick. He's a major championship caliber player. This is one of the 2 or 3 most difficult tests on the PGA Tour. The form is not there, but I do feel like, he plays down here at Bears Club. He's used to the Florida grainy Bermuda, great putter. If he can have a week where he can keep it on the grass off the tee, I think that he's going to be able to accentuate sort of his elite level around the green game, get up and down enough. He doesn't have to get to 24 under par this week. I think if he gets below 10 under par, he's going to be right on the leaderboard, and he's someone who won't back down on Sunday.
Yeah, interesting case there. Surprised he hasn't played here better. Especially just sort of being local, plays API really well, obviously.
Yes.
I'll push back a little on Cameron Young, because even though it's not a good course fit, he did play really well here back in 2022 when he was here. Ball striking was off the charts, game putting. And he's put up the finishes recently that a guy like Fitz hasn't, right? He was 8th in Phoenix, borderline top 15 at Riv, almost won over in Europe. And the stats, the ball striking, man, off the charts. It does feel like it's coming for Cameron Young. Probably would say, not going to happen here, but I would not be shocked.
Interesting players there right at the bottom of that range. Tom Kim, I think this is a pretty good course fit for Tom Kim. I don't love it for Min-Woo Lee. I think he's had a little bit of maybe he was sort of pedestaled a little early to start the season, but he's one of the big names I think talent-wise can win here. And then you have Shane Lowry, who always plays this event. Last year, he was like the best player in the field at this event. And I think that he's sort of been trending in maybe a little bit more of a positive direction than someone like Fitz. But those 3 players, if I made you pick one, have you bet any of them? Or if you had to, who would be your favorite of those 3?
I haven't. If I had to bet one, it would probably be Shane Lowry. I think his skill set works here pretty well. Again, I'll always take the guys who are local. He probably plays here quite a bit, plays out at Bears Club. Minwoo seems like the worst course fit of anybody on this list. And again, he played okay here last time he was here, but he would be probably the first one for me. Pretty easy to cross off. For Tom Kim, much better course fit. I just want to see it more on these Florida windy golf courses. Obviously, I think he'll be very popular in a couple of weeks when we go to Sawgrass. Yeah, those two at the bottom now are probably more interesting in Kirk and Sungjae. There's a lot of guys here where we're going to have to make the course history versus recent form argument, starting with Sungjae. Could not be a better course for him. He loves it here. Usually plays really well here, but just hasn't been good for probably the last 4 to 6 months. Happy to fade him here. Kirk was actually really high for me this week. I believe he's fourth in my newest model. Ironically, Tom Kim is third, but I don't really buy that. But it's Rory, Cole, Tom Kim, Kirk, and then Cameron Young 5. So I'm not going to bet Kirk again to win. He got his win here. He got his win earlier this year at the Tournament of Champions. But if you're looking for a pivot off of an Eric Cole or off of a very popular Benny On, I think Chris Kirk makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point in sort of trying to tackle which side you're on in terms of course fit or course form this week. Yeah. I tend to lean with you and look for guys who are a better fit. There is some stickiness with a few players, though, on course history here. See, I think everyone is going to say that it's so volatile, which it is. You can be a player like Rory and win and go second and then miss 3 straight cuts. You hit one bad tee shot, and the penalty for missing one shot is so severe that you have that sort of volatility. But you look at someone like Sungjae Im, a player who dominated here the first couple of years, DFS Open year, we'll never forget it. Kenny, all of us were here sort of cheering Sungjae Im on down the stretch, an all-time moment, but he's playing like shit, dude. I don't know what's wrong with him. He started sort of the look back pause on his swing. I don't know if you noticed that, but for the first time since I looked in his PGA Tour career, he's lost strokes on approach now in 4 consecutive starts, which is bad news. And I don't see him sort of righting that ship, especially this week. If your irons are off and your confidence from 125 to 200 yards is not there, this is a terrible course to show up to next on the schedule.
Yeah, and so I think that's a good segue into sort of what buckets and what type of player you're looking for. You know, last week in Mexico, obviously pure distance and that bucket of over 200 approach, which we saw a shit ton of. These guys, you know, they had 5 wounds into par 4s and stuff like that. You're not going to see that here, right? You're going to see mostly 150 to 200. You're going to see some wedges. And so I think that brings a different type of player in here, where you don't need to just be hammering the Cameron Champs and the Tony Finau's of the world.
We've got a lot of guys here with positive course history who've played well. Kirk is obviously your defending champion. Daniel Berger has lost in a playoff year. He's been fantastic in other years and very familiar with playing well around this place. Corey Connors has kind of not had great results here, but I do think is a good course fit. Keith Mitchell, obviously, with a win. Sepp Straka with a win. They're in that 40 to 45 range. This is kind of, Luke List is 50 to 1. That's one that I bet. This is kind of where I found myself this morning circling and grabbing up a couple names like right around this 40 to 1 range and hoping that it's going to be their week, because I'm ready for the Thursday morning early tilt of Honda week.
Yeah, for sure. We were talking about it before we came on, but I had kind of already decided that I was betting Keith Mitchell and Luke List. So made that pretty easy when they were both around 50 this morning. You know, as I was kind of looking through some of this stuff, and again, at that approach bucket, a lot of these guys are not good from that range. Like I look at Bo Hostler, I look at Jaeger. Berger's actually good, but obviously those stats are pretty outdated.
Right.
But I think Straka is, again, very interesting case here, because everybody's going to look at the recent finishes and say, you know, hey, he's not in form. But if you look at it, it's putting, and it was POA putting. And you know where he's from, and you know what he's good at, and you know what course he loves. So I'm kind of willing to overlook the fact that he lost on average about 4 strokes putting every event on POA. Yeah, he was minus 1.57 at Farmers, minus a half at AT&T, and then minus 1.37 per round at Riv. I love this for him. A first and a fifth the last 2 years, not going to be popular at all this week. So I'm in on some Sepp Straka.
Okay, I feel that. I took 3. You mentioned you had Keith Mitchell as well. I have 3 here. It was Corey Connors. He was the guy that I was sort of waiting for the number to drop and wanted to bet here. Another guy that I know is familiar with grainy Florida, Bermuda, lives here locally.
Yep.
Hasn't played this event a ton, but has had other success at places in Florida like Valspar, like Bay Hill. I just think it's a great fit. I love the way he's sort of been quietly trending. Like he's having good rounds, but he's
Yep.
ultimately not having good results. And I think this is the reason that we got a number like 35 or 40 to 1 on Corey Connors, because you've got T24, T28, T31, nothing to sort of write home about, but the approach numbers, the off the tee, the ball striking is always there with Connors. I took Jaeger. This is the last one, and it was kind of just a gut like feeling 45 to 1 Jaeger because I've been riding him for so long. But I see some of the concerns that you have from 125 to 200 yards, and it's really not his wheelhouse range. And then I got our boy Luke List. T2 at the Genesis. Thought with about 8 holes left that he could run away with that thing. He looked fantastic there. I was on him the year that he ultimately ended up losing at the very end to Justin Thomas. I think that his distance and his ability to sort of get in grooves with the driver could be a big advantage here. And he's a great long iron player. So if he does have to club down on some of these tees and hit like a spicy 3 or a 4 iron out there, 230 yards, he's a guy that I know has that shot in the bag. It's going to come down to the putting for Luke List, like it ultimately always does. But I think there are more positive signs to point to heading into the event this year than he maybe has had throughout his career. So maybe it's not fixed, but maybe it's something that is getting better. And if he continues to do the things that he always does well, I think 50 to 1 is a very fair price on old Luke List this week.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously he's done it at this golf course. He's a Bermuda guy, right? He's from Tennessee. Yeah. Went to Vanderbilt.
I think
he lives in Augusta now.
They say Augusta.
I think he lives there now. He was from Tennessee. Yeah. Went to Vanderbilt. Yeah. He has played well at this golf course, has a pretty underrated short game in terms of, being able to pitch the ball here. And the putter is better, right? He seems to have found something. I hit him at the Sanderson Farms this fall, so still have a soft spot for Luke List.
All right, one guy we both kind of have a soft spot for. I haven't bet him this week yet. You have one of the best players in that range for 125 to 200 yards. We had a big ticket on him a few years ago, and I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years ago, but I followed him when essentially nobody was following him and watched a ball striking exhibition like I don't think I've ever seen in all my years at the Honda Classic. He was stalking pins on the par threes, hitting everything to 6 feet and not making a single putt, but he got himself in contention. He's been playing well. He's a proven winner. I'm talking Adam Svensson. Any other points to make there on our boy that got you on him this week?
I mean, he was just 6th in tee to green at Riv in that field on a golf course that should not fit him on grass types and surfaces that we would not expect to see him. It was Matsuyama, Scheffler, Zalatoris, Xander, Benyon, and then Adam Svensson. So, you talked about it. Loves this golf course. He won at the RSM, which is definitely a bit of a comp course here. Won on a Korn Ferry Tour course. I believe at least one of his wins was on a course very similar to this. So we love Adam Svensson around these parts.
Okay, 60 to 1 and above range. Alex Noren, Denny McCarthy, Christian Bezadenhout, Jake Knapp is back, fresh off a victory. We'll see how long he lasts in the field. Was kind of expecting a withdrawal today. Did that news come yet? Did I miss that?
Did not.
Still in the field. Okay, Justin Rose, Rasmus Højgaard, Ricky Fowler, Thunder Bear, all 66 to 1. Any leans for you here? I'll just get it out of the way. I obviously bet Denny. I'm going to be following him this week. I've got plans to meet up with him, hopefully snap a pic. I did get a message from Denny that says, yes, I'm happy to be back in Florida and ready to go. So that was enough for me to pull the trigger on 65 to 1. He's the only tour player that I could message like that and will get back to me. Team Denny for life. There was never going to be a Cognizant Classic where I don't bet him. It's interesting that He talked about this, and I found it pretty interesting that while players may hate PGA National, a
Mhm.
lot of them are very endeared to this place because they have such fond memories. For so many guys, this was a life-changing moment in golf course with them because this is where they qualified through Q school. And so
Right.
many players look back and say, that was the biggest moment of my life. Like, even if they have PGA Tour wins, getting through Q school is a life-changing moment for them. And so many of them remember fondly PGA National through that. And I think Denny was one of those guys. He talked about it blowing 30 to 40 miles an hour, and he shot even par on the last day and
Mhm.
went up like 50 spots on the leaderboard because guys were coming in and posting like 88s. He's really fond of this place. He likes it. He enjoys tough golf courses, and I'm going to bet him here and kind of plug my nose and close my eyes and not look at some of the approach and off the tee numbers recently.
Yeah, I think Denny passes the test of, if you fast forward to Sunday evening and he's holding the trophy, would you be surprised? Right. And and I think at a course like this, the answer would be no. This is definitely the type of place that I would take him. Here at Wyndham, obviously. I did not get to any of these guys in this range because, again, I kind of stayed shorter. However, in terms of value plays and guys who I think will be popular or should be popular, Christian Bezuidenhout is very, very high for me this week. There were, I think, some 80s and 90s this morning, which almost got me. I probably would have needed 110 or more, but his iron play has been ridiculous, and still one of the best putters out there. Plays surprisingly well in Florida. He's made both cuts here, hasn't really done much, but plays Bay Hill very, very well. And so, again, I think if he has another good week here, he will be a very popular play at Bay Hill next week, too.
Yeah, another one that's kind of interesting, and I have not bet this yet, but I thought about Mark Hubbard, and I bet Mark Hubbard last week, and he's just been super sharp with his irons. There's not many weeks better on the entire tour season than his week. I believe at the Farmers, he gained like 8 strokes on approach that week at Torrey Pines, followed that up with a top 5 at Pebble Beach. Played pretty well and sort of lingered through the first 2.5 days and sort of that top 5 in Mexico at a course that I think he was just outmatched in terms of power at Mexico. He comes back here. He's another Southeast guy. And if he sort of has that confidence with his irons, he told one of the reporters at Pebble, they were following him, that he was like so hoping that they were able to play that Sunday because he said he's never struck the ball better in his life. Now, that may be him sort of pumping his own tires, but those are the guys, like, you have to have that self-confidence in your ability to hit a 160-yard shot exactly where you need to hit it at a course like this, or you will quickly be exposed. So those are the type of names that I'm sort of circling on here. We talked a little bit about Taylor Pendrith earlier. He kind of rated out high in my model. There's a couple of guys like EVR and Davis Thompson that were very popular last week. Are you willing to go like back in that direction, or is it such a different course profile that you're looking for a different skill set here?
Looking for a different skill set, for sure, especially of someone like Thompson. Again, he's borderline in that Cameron Champ mold. I think he's a slightly better putter, but bombs it off the tee, really good from the over 200 bucket. I don't necessarily trust him below that. I mean, just kind of looking at these guys, I think Doug Gim will be popular just with the recent form. But then you look, he's 0 for 3 here, so that certainly raises some red flags. Seeing Thomas Dietrich down here after being one of the favorites last week, right? He was like 20-1 last week,
Yeah,
and
he was.
Kind of way down here. Ben Griffin always popular down here, but no, I'm not on any of these guys here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, it's a number at 70-1. That's not terrible on Doug Gim, but I was looking through some of my old betting cards at the Honda because I have the little pictures of them. And there was a year, I'm not sure if it was 2 years ago, maybe, where Doug Gim was like 28-1, and I had him on the card here. I'm like, what in the world was that?
Brutal.
Okay, Matt Wallace played well. Matt McNeely. These are all guys. I'm not going to name them all, but over 100-1 this week. It's like, give me a long shot bomb that you sort of have been circling on and keying in for this course.
Oh, you want to do that now, huh?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, here you go. I got one for you. We can play a little game here. So this player was in the top 10 strokes gained tee to green last week in Mexico. He actually had the lowest weekend score at -10. So lowest score over the weekend, closed with a 65. He has 3 top 17 finishes at this golf course, including a third.
3 top 17.
He has won on a comparable course at Heritage. He has a second at the Wyndham comp course. And he has a third at Charles Schwab comp course. And he is on your screen right now.
Is it CT?
It's CT Pan. And FanDuel this morning had a rogue 350 to 1.
Jesus.
Again,
Really?
I put $10 on it. Like, whatever. It's fine.
Didn't he finish like 4th last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was right there. He finished tied for third last week. Closed with, open 71, 67, 67, 65, which was the low round on Sunday. Was 4th in approach on Sunday, top 10 tee to green. Again, a guy who can win, right? He's proven that. He won the Heritage. He would have won Wyndham, but he hit damn tee shot out of bounds on the 18th hole on Sunday with the lead.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, just a crazy number because, again, he should be in this range, probably 120 to 150. I think the other guy that you just scrolled past up there, Lee Hodges, and I think for a DraftKings play specifically, he's at 6,500 this week. Obviously, we have a ton of guys down in that 6K range, so you can really kind of play whoever. But you talk about a course fit, a guy who loves Bermuda. Believe he has a 9th and a 14th in his 2 appearances here. He won on what some call a comp course at the 3M because of all the water. I don't necessarily buy that, but obviously have to avoid the water. But seeing him down there at 120 to 1, I think he makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, that actually makes sense to me a little bit as a decent comp course that I forgot that I've sort of looked at in the past. I'll have the long shots video out tomorrow, but one guy I was sort of looking at earlier today and may make that card. I thought about, there's 4 Kims in this field. The one guy that kept popping for me was your boy Chan Kim.
Yeah, that's right.
Finished top 10 last week, finished top 10. I'm not sure if it was Phoenix. Was it Phoenix top? He had another top, or American Express this season.
Yeah, 14th there. Yeah.
So he has 2 good finishes. We mentioned like some of the Korn Ferry guys, they're eager for these starts, and you got wins out of Grayson Murray and you got wins out of Jake Knapp, and Chan Kim was the number 2 on the Korn Ferry points.
What do those 3 guys have in common? Do you know?
No.
Basically, the 3 oldest guys who came off the Korn Ferry.
Really?
Chan is, I believe he's 34. Obviously, Grayson's been around forever. Jake Knapp's 29 or 30.
29.
Yeah, Chan Kim, he was a prolific winner on the Asian tour, on the Japanese tour where he was there. I think he had 8 wins. And not only won twice on the Korn Ferry last year, but did it back to back at the end of the year, right? Like sort of leading into the playoffs. He's qualified for a bunch of majors. He's been around. And if there's one thing he does really well, it's the off the tee game. He's going to keep it in play. He's going to hit fairways.
Good putter.
Maybe
he's just a spike putter, but he has some weeks in there where he's gaining like 4 or 5 strokes putting.
Yeah, like he could. Yeah, especially I think again he's like 6,200 this week. I would definitely throw him on some teams here.
What do you think of maybe not the reasoning? You don't have to dive into that, but how does it affect your strategy when DraftKings does this now, where they're going from like 12? They're basically creating like a 7K spectrum of players versus what was normally a 5K. Like, how does that affect your builds?
Well, I think with this week specifically, it's probably going to make me play more Rory than I was going to, because I don't think there's a gap between him and Cam Young, but I don't think they made them expensive enough. When they used to do this with like Ryder Cup DFS or with the match play DFS and have guys, or like the Tour Championship, Scotty Scheffler was like 15K, right? Or 14K, whatever it was. It's very easy. Like there were legit guys at like 5,100 that you could play this week, right? So I think it's going to lead people to play more Rory, playing more Rory Cole or Rory M lineups, that sort of thing.
Chalkiest guy on the slate this week, Rory?
So, no.
Okay.
I'm going to say, I was thinking about this earlier because like my first, like when I went through pricing, the first, and again, maybe this is our bias, The first guy who jumped out to me was Svensson. I said, Svensson is too cheap. I think he'll be very popular, but I also think Bez at that same price. So in the low range, I'll say Doug Gim is going to probably be the most owned of that. At the top, I still think people are going to click in Eric Cole. And I think they're going to do it for two reasons. One, you can fit him with Rory pretty easily. And I'm probably going to be one of those who does that. But two, you can start your teams with Eric Cole because nobody really wants to play Cameron Young. No one's really going to play Fitz. Are they going to pay 10-2 for Henley? Probably not.
Probably not.
You go Cole, you grab one or two more from there. So, yeah, I think Eric Cole's probably going to be the highest.
All right, cool, dude. Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate you as always. Ryan Baroff, you are one of the best, most elite follows on all of Twitter. Thanks for coming on, bud. I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good. See you tomorrow, bud.
Bright and early.
Sir.
Later, Arby.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning into the show tonight. I have an extremely jam-packed schedule this week, doing some stuff tomorrow with the golf bet team, doing some stuff tomorrow, maybe going to get out and play a little bit. I don't know. We'll see how things go, but 6 articles this week, 6 podcasts. It's all on deck. This is my absolute favorite week of the year. Make sure to give me a follow on Twitter at TourPicks. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you enjoyed the show this week. I always enjoy the hell out of seeing all of you in the comments here. Thank you once again for checking out Preferred Lines. I'm going to talk to you guys soon. I'll keep bringing out quality content, hopefully for the Cognizant Classic of the Palm Beaches this week. I wish you the best of luck. Look, I told you we were going to get a winner last week on this show. I said, this is the time we're finally breaking through. It's been 7 weeks on the year. We're due. We finally cashed the 40-1. Card will be out Wednesday. We're going back to back. Welcome to Palm Beach. I'll talk to you guys soon. I'm out of here. Peace.